Not every fucking small business owner is like the piece of shit manager that you had that wants to fuck you over. Some of them are unironically ma and pa's, okay? A lot of them are just like singularly owned or family owned businesses, so it doesn't really matter. They're not cucked in the same degree by like a minimum wage increase, but there are still hypothetically some small businesses that are small mom and pop shops that employ one or two individuals, and you have to fucking care about their safety and security. If you can't pay your employees a living wage, you shouldn't be in business. I don't disagree with that either, by the way. I think it's ridiculous to say, oh, sorry, my small business can only survive if I fucking starve my employees. All right, well, then fucking your small business should not exist. Like, you should still get help from the government to ensure that you can actually launch a small business that pays living wages. But this notion that, like, the only reason my small business is surviving is because I employ children and skirt by, you know, the lack of child labor practices, or the only reason why my business can survive is because I fucking enslave my labor force, is not an argument that you can use. Ultimately, these sorts of legislative accomplishments seek to make everyone's lives a little bit better. And the hilarious part about this that most people, again, fail to recognize is when small business owners and the millions of people that work within small businesses or work for minimum wages actually get an increase in their pay, as we have seen time and time again, what happens to the lower percentile when they end the lowest percentile of workers? What happens when they increase their wages or get cash? They fucking spend it, okay? They spend it, and they spend it immediately. So what will end up happening to small businesses, unironically, is increase their fucking profits, because now you have people who have more purchasing power. Now you will have people who can at least take one day off in the week to go out and be able to eat at your local mom and pop shop. That's how it works. Keep going.
Can spread that out over the price of its products. It can spread it out over its 83% market share in like the book market. It can upcharge people on the product in a way that small mom and pop stores cannot. Increase in minimum wage obviously disproportionately affects places that have 3 employees as opposed to places that have 300 employees, of which 30 are actually minimum wage employees.
Well, you're right about that, and this is.
It's like, this argument is also silly as fuck, because there are examples around the world that you can look to. You make it seem as though like every company is a massive multinational corporation. Every company that operates in places like Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Canada, every single one of them are actually massive chains, and not a single small business actually exists in these countries. Well, that's not the case. So clearly you can still have fucking small businesses in places like Norway.
You're right that the impact on certain small businesses is harder, and that we have to take action to help those small businesses. I mean, I acknowledge that point. I will say, though, that in small communities, rural communities, often you have the case that these are highly concentrated markets. And in that case, you have employers having a lot more monopsony power to be able to set the wage in not truly competitive markets. But to the extent that my comments in the past were not sensitive enough in the way I phrased it to the challenges of small business, I acknowledge that challenge. I agree with you that it's going to be much harder for certain.
Also, what about the fucking small businesses currently that pay more than the minimum wage? Like, it's so strange. Like, Ben and other conservatives, whenever they argue against a minimum wage increase, they are literally making an argument for why the minimum wage should be increased. Because the reality is, companies will pay you whatever they can fucking get away with, okay? Whatever they can get away with. So if you have a minimum wage, that's set at $7.25, some people are just going to pay you $7.25 and budget according to the $7.25. That's just how it is. They're like, this is what we can pay them minimum. Like, no one is going to fucking increase their wages for no reason other than the fact that someone is forcing them to. And that's precisely how they operate. And that's how they're going to continue operating. And that's why you need to increase it.
Small businesses, and we have to be honest about it. I mean, we can't. I want to engage in an honest conversation.
And whenever someone, sorry, I know I keep cutting him off, but whenever someone like Ben Shabibo says, something along the lines of like, oh well, actually, why don't we raise the minimum wage to $100 an hour? which is a argument. What is it, like ad absurdum or something? It's like just exaggerating it to the point where it's unmanageable, right? Then the counter to that should be, okay, well, why don't we do it zero? Why don't we decrease it to $0 an hour and actually have slaves? That would be incredibly fucking, that would be poggers, dude. Think about it. That'd be super fucking poggers, okay? That is a great hypothetical. Super poggers. Think about the profit margins for having human trafficking and slavery. I mean, seriously.
Conversation, and to pretend that there's small businesses that aren't going to be effective and that should be helped would not be correct.
We'll get to more with Congressman Roe.
Sorry.
Description box below. And the other big problem with a federal minimum wage is that it is federal. I mean, when we were talking about setting one standard minimum wage across an entire country where wages are extremely different.
That's the nanny state. I hate it. That's the nanny state. Stop it.
Mississippi than they are in California. In California, a $15 minimum wage in a place like your district or a place where I was living until very recently, LA, you get a $15 minimum wage. That buys you like a 1-bedroom studio apartment. If you get a $15 minimum wage in Mississippi, that is literally the median wage in Mississippi. Right? There are states where there are wildly disparate numbers as far as what wages are.
Dude, imagine being able to get a fucking 1-bedroom apartment in California. What part of Bakersfield, motherfucker? What are you talking about? Also, how is that a good argument? Like, how is that a good argument to be like, well, you know, places like California need a higher wage than the $15 minimum wage? Hey, newsflash, congratulations, you literally played yourself, okay? That means that the minimum wage should be even higher in a place like California. And guess what? When the federal minimum wage is $15 an hour, that allows workers and organizers and activists in a state like California to increase the minimum wage there even higher than the fucking $15 minimum wage, which is currently at like 14 and 13, depending on whether you're a small business or a big business. So pretty cool for Ben Shapiro to literally admit that $15 minimum wage in a hypothetical could potentially get you a fucking 1-bedroom apartment, which is not even true.
Are actually worth it in particular states.
But in the other side of it, it's like, what? Because the conditions are horrible in fucking Mississippi, then they don't deserve more? Like, it's crazy.
Why in the world would the federal government set a federal minimum wage that is so high that it is actually at or close to, I believe the median wage in Mississippi right now is $14.23 an hour. Why would they set a median wage, a minimum wage that is above the median wage in a place like Mississippi?
I wonder why.
When a minimum wage in California, $15 an hour, basically buys you a candy bar.
Well, again, this is the debate about the floor. I agree with you. In my district, $15 isn't enough. And the question is, should there be regional variance? Yes. And then the question becomes, what is the floor?
I mean, we have a federalist system, so there's a real easy solution here, right? I mean, we actually have like cities and states, and they could do this sort of thing.
Right. But the question is, there should be a national floor. And now I'm saying the floor should be $15. Do you believe there should be any floor? I mean, do you think, $7.25, I think, is unreasonable. I mean, for example, Cotton and Romney have said the floor should be $10. I think Holly is saying it should be $15, but for billion corporations, where would you set the floor?
I mean, unfortunately, there is a floor, and the floor is zero, and it's going to be felt by 1.4 million people who won't have a job come 2025 if we raise this to $15 minimum wage.
I guess my question.
Okay, again, that's not 1.4 million people that are going to be out of a job. That's 1.4 million potentially less jobs while simultaneously lifting 4 million people out of poverty. And that is the very conservative estimate. Do you understand? Also, limiting the floor to $0 an hour is, again, slavery. You are advocating for slavery. It is an idiotic fucking counterpoint. I love that I brought it up as an absurd argument, which Ben adopts to, Ben personally adopts for no reason. Like, no one even brought that up. He was like, no, like, we should do $0 an hour. The argument there, of course, is that it should be competitive, right? Like, this way it'll be truly competitive. And in many circumstances, assholes like Ben, I don't know if he'll say this in the argument. Oh, he's saying the floor will be people out of a job. Yeah, the 1.4 million people that he's referencing, though, are not actually fucking losing their jobs, okay? It's 1.4 million people, or 1.4 million less jobs, potentially, in the most conservative estimate. That doesn't mean those people are fucking losing their jobs. It literally factors in people that have 2 jobs, for example. I have heard him say $0 an hour, though. Let's see if I misunderstood him or not.
There is a, I mean, unfortunately, there is a floor, and the floor is 0, and it's going to be felt by 1.4 million people who won't have a job come 2025 if we raise this to $15 minimum.
Yeah, because right now with a $7.25 minimum wage, there is no unemployed people. That's not an argument. Like, you can't make the so what's up? So are there no unemployed people right now at the $7.25? Is that what the argument you're making then? If you're saying that people that lose jobs, the 1.4 million jobs that are lost are not recoverable, not replaceable, and those people are making $0 an hour, so you're currently saying that at $7.25 there are millions and millions of people that literally are making $0 an hour. Therefore, the current minimum wage is also failing people. If you were looking at this in good faith,
minimum wage.
I guess my question is for you: would you support any national federal minimum wage at any standard?
No. I mean, I think free labor is able to bargain, and if you can come up with a case where you have an actual monopoly that is violating labor law in its attempts to cram down a wage on a person who's unwilling to accept it. First of all, we have an amendment to the Constitution that prevents involuntary servitude, and second of all, bargaining power.
Well, but I think that that's also inappropriate. Why do we even have an amendment that prohibits involuntary servitude? I don't get it. I think slavery should be re-implemented. If people want to sell themselves into slavery, then they should be able to do that. I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand why you would be against that. That's a form of the nanny state taking over, hypothetically, and stopping businesses and people who are free to choose to enslave themselves to not be able to do so. I hate that, which is why, by the way, Rothbard and other libertarians unironically have talked about this and have argued on behalf of this. Like actual fucking big brain, 5-head libertarians have pontificated endlessly on some of the more important matters, like selling your child. Should parents be able to sell their children in the free market of children? Will that actually improve the lives of children in general? For those of you, for those parents who want to purchase children, I'm not even kidding. Look this shit up if you don't believe me. Or being able to sell your own body into slavery, into indentured servitude. The reality of this, of course, that's often overlooked is the pressure of not being able to survive if you don't have a job. We never talk about that. That's always not considered. And any form of social control, any form of social safety nets that alleviate some of that tension is considered to be negative by people like Ben Shapiro, regardless.
Are still a thing. I mean, the fact is that there are wages that people cannot charge because people will not take the jobs for those wages. I mean, that does exist. And by the way, if you're worried about wages being depressed, then there's a case to be made that one of the things we should be worried about is cracking down on businesses that are using illegal immigration in states like California, for example.
Yeah, illegal immigration only exists in states like California, and definitely like the chicken factory in fucking Kentucky is not straight up reliant on undocumented labor that they can immediately fucking push out with ICE agents the moment that they demand back pay, or the moment that they demand that they don't get sexually harassed on the fucking on the line when they're working. That sort of thing. That never happens anywhere else. It's just California illegal immigrants. He literally said, for example, no, the reason why he's mentioning California in his fucking, for example is because it's a culture point talking point. Okay. That's a culture war talking point. That's why he says places like California have illegal immigrants. Like, no, bitch. They have undocumented labor everywhere in this country. Undocumented labor is the backbone of American agricultural production. Without undocumented immigrants, we would have no agricultural production. That is the sad fucking reality. And the way to solve that is not by arguing endlessly on the minimum wage. There is a separate solution for that. And that separate solution exists, okay? You make the undocumented labor force documented and allow them to organize. That way, they will no longer create a permanent underclass that can be used and weaponized against the documented labor force. But you don't want to do that because the business owners that line up your fucking pockets genuinely need undocumented immigrants to consistently to continue to exist, so they can use that as a negotiation against the American documented labor force and say, hey, if you don't like it, like, someone else is going to take your fucking job.
But what would you say to the argument for monopsony, which even Friedman argues? Now, in fairness, he says this is a rare case, and he was against minimum wage, just in fairness. But he says, look, there are cases where you have one or two employers in a town, and they're not.
The thing that, like, fucking Ben Shapiro and other conservatives love to do is take one problem, a separate problem that requires a separate solution, and jam it against another problem to say, we just simply cannot solve this. And it's a very frustrating argument. And a lot of people who have like anti-progress points of view, whether they're liberals themselves or fucking diehard conservatives, they do this. They constantly fucking use other issues. Like, they'll say something along the lines of, okay, well, what about all the debt that you take on to become a doctor? If we were to do free healthcare, then we can't pay doctors as much as we normally would. And ultimately, like, that's really inappropriate. No one's going to want to be a doctor and take on $200,000 in debt just so they can, get paid much lower than they actually should be getting paid. Okay, then you're making a fucking argument as to why college should be fucking free, so no one is taking on $300,000 in debt. That is a separate problem that requires a separate solution. Which I agree with, by the way. That's why you can't have free healthcare without free college, especially for medical, for MDs.
Charging a competitive price because you don't have the choice to go to 4 or 5 different employers. And in those cases, it's a market failure. That certainly seems as one case. And then we can disagree about negotiating. But I guess the broader point in my view, Ben, is because I believe in entrepreneurship. I believe in innovation. I believe in capitalism. I call myself a progressive capitalist. Is when we're producing such incredible wealth, trillions of dollars in my district, the ability to have people earn.
Dude, medical degrees require a lot of resources. Yes, that's why famously in countries with socialized medicine, they don't have any doctors. Like, so you're right. In countries where they have socialized medicine and subsidized college, they just don't have any doctors. Like, they literally, when you go and visit the hospital in the UK, right, where college is way more affordable and they have an NHS system, they simply look at you and go, I don't know what you're doing here, bruv. Why are you at hospital if you require medical care, bruv? What you need to do is get acupuncture, bruv. And you're like, well, I just got shot. I just got shot in the gut. Can you please save me? And they're like, yes, we're going to engage in holistic medicine, bruv, right now. All right. Get together in a circle and stop praying, bruv. Like, that's how it works. Just do fucking acupuncture, bruv.
A wage that allows them to live a decent life seems to be something that's good.
Okay, maybe not shot, but like stabbed in the gut, because I said the UK. Another super communist thing that they have in the UK is a lack of guns. Really fucked up, honestly, if you ask me.
Democracy.
Yeah, I mean, my counterpoint is that we are not producing incredible wealth. These companies are producing incredible wealth because they know how to run the business better than members of government who are, getting their salary from me, frankly, and from these businesses that actually are paying extraordinary levels of tax. Representative Ro Khanna, I really appreciate you coming on the program, and it's great to have conversations like this. So thank you for reaching out, because you reached out after I think I noted something on the show about your comments, and so it's great to have you on to clarify your position on this, and I think it's really important to do it. So again, just want to thank you for your time.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate your having a very civil, reasonable.
Why was he so happy to talk about the businesses being smart? Yeah, businesses paying taxes is the funniest joke that Ben Shapiro's ever told. Bro, imagine being a business and paying taxes in America. What are you, stupid?
One place we agree upon is you said that I read somewhere that you believe rational debate is what's necessary in our democracy. And I wish we had more exchanges like that.
Why do conservatives, arguably intelligent as Ben Shapiro, use this list of preposterous talking points when the only argument against increasing the minimum wage is business owners raising prices and causing inflation, especially since that argument can't be countered by progressives? No, that argument can be countered by progressives, and you engage in measures like increasing taxes to combat some of these issues. Only small businesses pay taxes. I mean, that's kind of true. Small businesses do pay taxes in comparison to fucking big businesses, which don't. UK knife crime lie was pushed to the fore by Trump. Knife crime is not as widespread as an issue as there is in gun crime in the United States. I mean, it's still I was just saying that there's knife crime in the UK rather than gun crime. Not to the same degree, but still, there are knife crimes in the UK rather than gun crimes. Anyway. Meanwhile, GOP first move is to repeal estate tax in its entirety. We already did that. Senate Republican leaders have introduced a complete repeal of tax on estates. The existing tax applies to individuals. Well, Trump did this last year, or not last year, back in fucking 2017, where he increased the estate tax from, it was, I think, $5 million in 2017. He doubled that up to 11.7 million on couples, and that again is ridiculous. Like, I think 5 million should apply. I love that they talked about fucking, you know, the poor person's factory that, or the poor person's farm, like mom and pop's farm that is going to be taken by the government, and that's not how it works at all. But anyway, I had an income. Now they want to repeal it in its entirety. Ridiculous. My parents pay like $15K in taxes for their small business while big corps are fucking getting money. Won't the minimum wage increase also increase the deficit? It will by $57 billion. If only the Senate parliamentarian recognized that argument, though, when they were choosing to vote against including a $15 minimum wage increase, because it technically allows it to be a part of the budget when it matters, when it pertains to the deficit. The state is death taxes, boys. The government taking your wealth when you die, because you're dead. It's you don't need it, and you've given your children everything already up until that point. It's good. It's very impactful. Well, it doesn't matter because rich people manipulate it anyway. Would you support an estate tax for every estate? Yes. What am I going to do with the money, man? Shove it in my ass? Intergenerational wealth is like legitimately a problem. It's certainly a factor that it's certainly a fucking factor that that creates more wealth inequality in this country. Why is Marjorie Trader green? Okay, so we watched this Ben Shabibo shit again. There it is. I've been meaning to watch this dumb shit, and now I did. Now I fucking did, boys. Hold on, I have to pee again.
Nobody has been held accountable for her daughter's death. She said, you know, despite the fact that there have been steps forward along the way, it's still difficult for her. You know, last year, she did settle a civil lawsuit with the city for $12 million. It's the largest payout in Louisville history. There's also an ongoing federal investigation, but she talked about the fact that her push for accountability still continues.
What is this? A big oil exec told me I had a misconception about a special tax polluters get that other businesses don't. So after explaining the deduction to him, I offered to write it out of the tax code. Write it out of the tax code if that's what he wants. Just let me know.
They're estimated to be between 60 to 90% of. They're estimated to be between 60 to 90% of the cost of drilling. How much of those intangible drilling costs do you get to deduct right away from your taxes?
We get to deduct all of those just like any other business. We do not.
How much do you get to deduct?
There seems to be a misconception out there that you're operating from, that somehow the oil and gas industry benefits from some special sort of tax structure. We don't. We actually.
Reclaiming my time, Mr. Murphy.
Industries, right.
I will follow up with you, Mr. Murphy, but you do benefit from special rules. There's a special tax rule for intangible drilling costs that does not apply to other kinds of expenses that businesses have. You get to deduct 70% of your costs immediately, and other businesses have to amortize their expenses over their entire profit stream.
We also.
So please don't patronize me by telling me that the oil and gas industry doesn't have any special tax provisions. Because if you would like that to be the rule, I would be happy to have Congress deliver. I yield back.
Sorry, everyone. I had to go grab a Diet Coke. Or rather, not a Diet Coke, but fucking Diet Mountain Dew.
I will follow up with you, Mr. Murphy, but you do benefit from special rules. There's a special tax rule for intangible drilling costs that does not apply to other kinds of expenses that businesses have. You get to deduct 70% of your costs immediately, and other businesses have to amortize their.
How the fuck are you an executive and don't know what the previous lobbyists that you hired have, like, carved out for you? Like, at the very least, the thing that you should know is, like, where your benefits are. Like, you paid for it. Or I guess, like, I guess he doesn't, he didn't think that she would know, right?
Their expenses over their entire profit stream.
We also.
So please don't patronize me by telling me that the oil and gas industry doesn't have any special tax provisions. Because if you would like that to be the rule, I would be happy to have Congress deliver.
In a now familiar move, Tucker Carlson opened his show last night by attacking a journalist. It was a calculated, cruel tactic which he regularly deploys to unleash a wave of harassment and vitriol at his intended target. Taylor Lorenz is a talented New York Times journalist doing timely and essential reporting. Journalists should be able to do their jobs without facing harassment. Then why doesn't she literally understand it's bad? Wait, what? I really like Katie Porter a lot. I think she's fucking great. Oh, this just... Oh my God, this is such a fucking... Oh, Jesus Christ. Whoever fucking sent this to me, fuck you, dude. Just in, Miami Senator Myers Leonard has issued an apology for using an anti-Semitic slur while streaming Call of Duty. I want to apologize to every Jewish person out there. I meant to say the N-word instead. I am a better man than what I showed. Oh, Jesus Christ, dude. Guys, I'm sorry. It's not real. This isn't real. This isn't real. This isn't real. It's fucking parody. Holy shit. For people who are immediately going to think that this is real, it's not fucking real. Dude, he loaded that one up, dude. He went with a choice. He went with... like I said yesterday... The 14-year-old who no-scope Leonard got to come forward and collect the trophy, man. First sniper shot in COD to ever end somebody's life IRL. Yeah, literally. I know he's a famous trolling sport account. I know. Dude, he went with the president's choice slur. Sargon Avocado was sitting on you the other day on YouTube. Don't know if you're aware. Brother, I am not aware, despite the best, like, despite the many attempts of his, like, weird fans trying to get me to be aware, I do not care.
You're not going to get into the United States. That's why it looks like what you're looking at on your screen in Tijuana. Those are mostly single adults and family members who have been waiting under Trump, and they continue to wait under President Biden to get into the United States. We've heard a narrative from Republican politicians mostly and right-wing media that there is some kind of open border crisis happening right now. And that just isn't supported by the facts, certainly not what I saw at all. I saw a lot of people waiting and trying and can't get in to the United States, Allison. And so when it comes to children, the reason that children are coming into the country, that those border stations are full in the numbers that they are, is because the Trump administration ended a policy called Title 42 that kept everybody out of the country, including kids, under the cover of coronavirus. Even though public health experts said that's not going to stop the spread of COVID, they did it anyway. Well, the Biden administration repealed it only for children because they said they want to be more humane to them and they let them in the country. But everybody else is, when you talk about it from a macro scale, a wide scale, still staying out of the country because they can't.
This is Jacob Soboroff. He's done a lot of really good coverage for NBC on the immigrant detention facilities, overflow facilities, all that sort of stuff.
Let me ask you this. Where would you say we are in terms of the Biden administration trying to make changes, right? It said it wanted to reverse.
By the way, every fucking night now, or every morning rather, when they're doing a press briefing, the press pool literally says, well, what are you doing with the rampant immigration, like unchecked rampant immigration coming into the country? So, like, the press is also culpable for the reactionary point of view that Americans hold on to. And I feel like they literally switch it for whoever's the president at this point. Like, if it's a fucking liberal president, then they say, oh, you have open borders policies. How are you going to deal with it? If it's a Republican president who's conservative, they say, oh, you're fucking murdering immigrants. Why are you murdering immigrants? When in reality, both of the fucking administrations, no matter what, are murdering a fuckload of immigrants regardless, okay? They're definitely not being humane. They're definitely still subjecting them to unspeakable cruelty for the most part, yet the press switches the narrative like that with respect to whoever the fuck is actually in charge. It's pretty fucked up.
Opinion on what exactly policy means from the operators and the White House. They've got a long way to go to match the rhetoric that they've said.
Yeah.
And more importantly, they got a long way to go to depart from previous administrations, not just Trump, but Obama and Bush and Clinton, and even before that, infrastructure that was set up around deterrence, punishment, and scaring people away from coming to the country. And it's a huge undertaking that they are just getting started with right now.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at this, it is a problem that we have been dealing with in this country for years now. This administration only here for 50 days. So as you said, they certainly do have a ways to go. Jacob Soboroff, thank you always for your reporting on this really important issue.
Thanks, Allison.
Honest question, how does your border position differ from open borders? Well, I think that, like, open borders in the way that Republicans or, like, Americans understand it is very different than, like, actually having open borders. I think people should be able to freely move within states and freely move from a foreign nation to the United States as long as they have the proper documentation. So open borders does not mean, like, you know, fucking run in after murdering someone across a borderline. Open borders means that there is more international cooperation and there is an ease of access to documentation for migrant workers. That's what I believe in. And I do believe that. I also have some technocratic points of view when it comes to immigration that people will probably be frustrated with me by because they will consider that to be inhumane. But I think I believe in conditional amnesty, or at least not conditional amnesty, but like some conditions on integration that would, one, open up a lot of opportunities for new jobs, and two, make it easier for immigrants to come into the country and completely fucking completely fucking integrate into the workforce, whether they are jobs programs. You can throw up question marks all you want, whether they are jobs programs or whether they are, like language programs, things like that. It creates an opportunity for people to build more housing, creates an opportunity for people to teach technical skills, so education opportunities in that regard, more opportunities for healthcare, more opportunities in every fucking sector. What does that mean? What that means is having a what the fuck is this? Super rare illegal items. What that means is having a sector dedicated entirely to integration. Having an entire sector dedicated to integration, because I think that is the most significant problem that immigrant populations face, especially when they are coming in as like migrants or refugees from conditions that are are not great in their home countries. Okay? That doesn't mean cultural assimilation forced at gunpoint. It means language programs and allowing opportunities for immigrants to come in and feel included. Doesn't that lead to huge infrastructure problem in the short term? The lag time between immigrants entering the country and building infrastructure to support those immigrants, leading to huge issues in schooling, hospitals? No, especially because a lot of border states have a fuckload of empty fucking houses and would benefit tremendously from an increase in immigration into those states specifically. If you've never been to Oklahoma, then you don't know what I'm talking about. If you live in Los Angeles and you live in fucking New York, in New York City specifically, you think, oh my God, how the fuck are we going to have more people come and live here? We don't have enough space for the people that live here. When in reality, there is enough space for the people that do live there, including all the fucking homeless population, to be housed. But then also on top of that, there are a tremendous amount of opportunities, job opportunities for people to better the states that they land in, basically. Okay. And those conservative reactionary states would benefit tremendously from an increase in immigration into the country. This is why ghost towns used to successfully fearmonger Americans in China are widely successful. Yeah, there are fucking ghost towns in America too. It's called Buffalo, New York. Have you ever been to an area that used to have industry? Like it's over. It's fucking literal ghost towns, dude. It's actually worse because at least the ghost towns in like China are relatively new developments, whereas ghost towns in fucking America are also in a state of disrepair. Detroit is another great example. Buffalo is fine, bitch. No, it's not. Like Syracuse. Syracuse is literally outside of the college. You go to fucking Syracuse, it's like empty malls that once had life in it. The entirety of the Rust Belt is literally rusted. Bill's Mafia coming for you for talking shit? Okay, good luck. What are your thoughts on Ithaca? Bitch, I have no thoughts on Ithaca, okay? I have no thoughts on Ithaca. I hear it's beautiful, though. I've never been, but I hear it's beautiful. It's not just the Rust Belt either. People who deny this are delusional. Well, anyone from Buffalo know you're telling the truth? Yeah. Any town that used to host, any town that used to be an industrial town that had a blossoming economy that got absolutely cumstered and dumpstered when that industry moved overseas is going to look like a dead zone. And there are so many fucking places like that all around the country. You live in LA though, glass houses. I mean, dude, LA has a litany of different problems too, but like recognizing the plight that middle America goes through is not a bicoastal elite take, guys. Like accurately describing the fucked situation in so many places around the country, in all of these states that would otherwise be considered flyover states, is the opposite of a bicoastal elitist take. It's a take coming from a person who has literally seen with his own two fucking eyes the horrific conditions that the American working class is subjected to when living in these fucking areas. You can cry and say fucking the Bills Mafia is coming for you. I mean, most people are joking about that, but you know what I mean? Like, why would immigrants move to these areas? I don't know, because there's a profound amount of opportunity for a lot of these immigrants in areas such as this. Hazeltown is a great example, or Hazleton, or whatever the fuck. Hazleton, Pennsylvania was one of these goddamn ghost towns, okay? It was like 98% white or some shit. And then immigrants started moving in, and now that town is blossoming. Immigrants are fucking job creators. Undocumented immigrants are job creators. If you listen to someone like Tucker Carlson, they literally talk about how the economy improved as a consequence of undocumented immigration and documented immigration coming in to the area. But Tucker Carlson uses that as a bad thing. He will say that like the town started browning out, and more brown people started living there, and the people that live in the town said that they no longer recognize it. Well, guess what, dude? They literally fucking have jobs now, so they're not dying. So shut the fuck up. This is why it is rather silly, and it can be most like anti-immigrant arguments could be reduced to racism, because you're basically saying, oh, well, I don't want a brown person giving me a job. I want a white person giving me a job. That's basically what you're fucking saying. Like, I care more about who's giving me the job and the makeup of the population in an area, rather than being able to put food on my table. And a lot of people don't feel that way, by the way. A lot of people aren't as racist. You are that racist when you are the Swanson frozen food dynasty recipient, who is going, or Swanson frozen food heir that gets to make money by being racist like that and making it seem as though everyone else is that racist, when most people don't give a fuck. Okay? You can be the biggest like green energy enthusiast, but if you have no fucking job and you have no job prospects and you have no way to get out of your fucking hometown, and all of a sudden a fracking operation opens up behind in your neighborhood, you're going to go fucking work there. You're going to take that $80,000 a year job. You know what I mean? You're going to get that technical training, which is why I also laugh whenever people say shit like, oh, retraining doesn't matter. Yes, technically retraining is unsuccessful, but what it never factors into that conversation, I believe, is the reality that I don't even know if it's considered retraining when you talk about fucking people who have literally been unemployed for 10 years or for 5 years, or unemployed as a consequence of the industry that kept their town alive, it fucking went away. Will you do RP after the game show? I might, yeah. I will be on Hive Mind at 6 p.m. Comrade Doodad, can you please re-examine your immigration position from an imperialism perspective? You discussed the need for humane treatment of immigrants, but you didn't speak on the material conditions that immigrants are moving into the U.S. to escape. These conditions are directly caused by imperialism, and our immigration policy has to start with this realization. You know me, brother. You know me, Comrade Doodad. I rarely talk about imperialism and how it factors into capitalist nation states and their operation. So thank God you're here to make sure that that part was factored in to the argument. I always divorce immigration as a necessary state for capitalism to continue. Or not immigration, sorry, imperialism. That's definitely a new leftist, 100%. Yep, exactly. And the people who say keeping Hassan honest are being delusional. If you think I literally do not talk about immigration all the goddamn time or imperialism all the goddamn time. By the way, Looped, thank you for the 20 gifted subs. Thank you. New leftist just dropped. Yeah, it's not a bad thing. Okay, but all I'm saying is that LDN actions against Marley were justified. What? Okay. I will watch this new second thought video unless there's another second thought video. There's a bunch of good React shit that we can watch. Emergency powers, why American healthcare is the worst in the world. Oh no, we've already seen some of these. Mutual aid and dual power practice 101. Hyper individualism, is the state your enemy? Free market isn't free. The GameStop saga. We talked about some of this. All right, let's watch this. Can you trust your media?
This episode and others like it are made possible by the generous support of my patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to help me produce more content like this and get early access to every new video, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/secondthought. Can you trust the media? It's a common question, and one that's popping up more and more often in our increasingly polarized world. Over the years, we've seen numerous examples of news networks twisting the truth to fit a certain narrative, or spreading outright lies in order to gain public support for military initiatives. Today, with more news at our fingertips than ever before, it's important to really consider the question: can you trust the media? So, in this episode, that's what we're going to discuss. Renowned academic and social critic Noam Chomsky once said, "He who controls the media controls the minds of the public."
Wow, sounds a lot like anti-Semitism to me, sweaty. Noam Chomsky is canceled. What an anti-Semite.
Manufacturing Consent, his work explaining the failure of capitalism and corporate control of the US, he focuses on highlighting the role.
Edward Herman is the most underappreciated, underrated, and non-mentioned academic in the world
that the media has played for decades, and continues to play, in manipulating public opinion for the benefit of private interests. In today's climate, it's not hard to find people who denounce the mainstream media as a pile of lies and
Manufacturing consent sounds like some weird PUA anti-consent bullshit. It's pretty fucking problematic, to be honest. That's really good. Yeah, because the point of manufacturing consent is actually a how-to on how to do manufacturing consent, and that it's good and a necessity.
Fabrications, but then run to Fox News or other such networks as a reliable source of information, not realizing that, whomever they listen to, all modern news outlets are controlled by a set of interests that have nothing to do with sharing useful, educational, or trustworthy information. Just 21 companies own all.
I mean, this guy's in the media, and Hasanabi's also in the media. This is how new media works. There is no one answer to trusting the media because this isn't monolithic. No, we are described. First of all, many people have asked Noam Chomsky about what he thinks about manufacturing consent in the age of the internet. Matt Taibbi being one of the famous people that have asked this question and tried to get a good answer to write about. But we are still within this framework of manufacturing consent because we are outside of the mainstream media, and that's precisely why there are still limitations to what we can say and what we can't say. But ultimately, because we are outside of the framework of legitimate media entities, we can get away with saying whatever the fuck we want. and even speaking out against mainstream media talking points or against American imperialism, where there's bipartisan consensus within mainstream media. However, that comes along with being vilified, or in a lot of instances just considered illegitimate.
All the media outlets in the US, 5 of which own all the major news networks of the country. You might remember from one of my earlier videos that these big 5 are Comcast, Disney, News Corp, National Amusements, and AT&T. This quasi-monopoly allows those who own these companies to feed the nation a twisted version of reality and make people believe whatever they want us to believe. This creates an environment in which only the news that fits the interest of the individuals who own these private companies makes it to the public. This corporate domination of the media goes hand in hand with the corporate domination of the government, and perpetuates a system where absurdly wealthy individuals run the show without ever needing to be elected. There's a common opinion among many Americans that the media is entirely the domain of liberal elites. That is not the case. Far from being controlled by coastal liberals trying to paint all conservatives as racist and homophobic, the mainstream media is controlled by the same overarching interest groups as supposedly alternative media like Fox and Voice of America. All modern news sources.
Anyone who thinks Fox is alternative media is also a fucking delusional moron. Like, they are literally the most mainstream of the mainstream. They are literally the most successful news operation in the fucking country, okay? And the same conservative voices also own Sinclair Broadcasting, which is like 70% of the TV market to begin with. It's fucking nuts.
Have become a single, unified front aimed at manufacturing consent and steering the conversation away from real news and towards pointless aesthetic disagreements. Those who own the networks may want to appear to espouse different views, but at the end of the day, they're all staunchly capitalist and benefit from the same tax cuts as every other rich business mogul. But since they have to maintain a veneer of objectivity, we get news networks that fight over petty cultural squabbles while quietly agreeing on all the big stuff. The news you see today has very little to do with informing you about what is going on around the world in a clear and objective manner. Today's news outlets only focus on 2 things: pandering to the biases of their audience and indirectly promoting the financial agendas of specific industries. For most of its existence, the American media has painted our way of life as the best way of life, whether for its economic opportunity for right-leaning media or standards of democracy and fairness for left-leaning media. We have been fed the lie that America is the #1 country in the world and indoctrinated to believe it. The only thing America can truly claim the #1 spot for is wasting money on the military. And how do we justify that? Just turn on the news. For decades, the US media has created news stories to glorify intervention in foreign countries, often lying outright about certain events.
You know, good stuff. Good stuff that the New York Times engaged in. You know, things that you hear even now from the American government's position against Iran, the saber rattling that you hear from the American government about how, like, we need to deal with Iran, and that's why it's a justification for why we need to keep selling weapons to Saudi Arabia, because Iran threatens Saudi Arabia's, who is our most valuable ally, our foreign partner in the Middle East, outside of Israel. You know, they need to maintain their regional sovereignty. Everything is like Iran bad, and that's why we need to fucking keep doing engagements, military engagements in the region.
Tiny number of terror attacks on American soil are covered from all angles, but the vast and ongoing devastation wrought in the Middle East by the US military and our murderous sanctions barely get a mention. And the media doesn't only avoid mentioning US interventions, it also avoids those of its friends and allies. In the 1970s, when Indonesia invaded East Timor and occupied neutral territory, killing thousands, the media said nothing. Indonesia was a US ally. Today, the conflict in Yemen has been labeled as one of the world's worst humanitarian crises, and it's been going on for 6 years. Innocent people are dying in atrocious conditions every single day. Have you seen any media coverage of this lately? Has Fox, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, or any...
No, because it's our guns that are actually doing it. So obviously, when our guns are doing it, like, it's actually a good thing. We need to keep giving Saudi Arabia more of those guns and bombs, especially the gay bombs at Raytheon, because, you know, they are LGBT friendly. So according to the Human Rights Watch, they are the most LGBT friendly company of 2019. So, you know, sorry, sweaties in Yemen, you are going to be hit with bombs.
Of the others said anything about the plight of the Yemeni people lately. No. Why is that? Because the Saudi army is largely responsible for the murders. And who arms the Saudi army? The United States. Once again, corporate interest and the country's bottom line supersede the right to accurate information. No matter which way these outlets lean, they are all guilty of filtering the information we receive to suit the interest of
Our guns with the people doing the killing don't get enough to blame, treated as POC, they have no agency. I find that to be rather idiotic because no, the people that are fucking doing it should get a fuckload of blame. I criticize the Saudi government's actions all the goddamn time, just like I criticize the American government's actions all the goddamn time. It is so psychotic. Also, you're talking about Saudi soldiers now. Talk about what you can control, which is not giving them arms and also actually, telling them, stop fucking murdering people. This is something that we could do. We could do that, but we are not.
Of their owners. Private ownership of the media has turned information into a commodity, not a right. And commodities have a value, which can be turned into profit. The name of the game in American media is not to inform, engage, and empower the world, as CNN so eloquently puts it, but to sell, manipulate, and turn a profit for shareholders. Like anything, information is a good that can be sold to the highest bidder, and corporations are willing to pay a lot of money to get the information they want in front of your eyes. It doesn't matter if you think all immigrants are criminals, or if you think Trump should be impeached 3 or 4 more times. There's a network out there which has some information to sell you, and it...
So here's the thing, this is a good question. How's the media controlling everything if we're talking about it right now? Okay, so Chomsky talks about this. This is one of the few issues where, this is one of the few areas where Noam Chomsky and Slavoj Žižek agree. Okay, it's 2 different forms of control. In the neoliberal Western capitalist world, the media creates a presence or creates an idea of freedom, but that is confined within a box of acceptable opinions, okay? And that box further and further shifts to the right because that benefits corporations and that benefits the American manufacturers, gun manufacturers, small arms and weapons manufacturers in general. So that comfortable box of ideas that you can have within mainstream media shifts further and further to the right and is more and more reactionary. In the Eastern world, where there is a lot of press limitations, there is a lot of control, authoritarian control rather, you understand that that control is enforced and that you are not getting the correct information, or that the press is always going to lie to you because it's the state press, or it's at least controlled by the state. And therefore, you have an understanding that you need to be skeptical of the information that you are filtering in. So if you look to Soviet bloc or Soviet era people who lived in the Soviet era, they will tell you the government's fucking lying to me. I know the government's fucking lying to me, so I need to figure out the truth on my own. So there's benefits to both, right? I prefer the Western way of going about it. Okay. Making it seem like you are actually, advocating for freedom, but limiting the control of information or the flow of information to an acceptable confine, an acceptable box of ideas. Why do people keep saying AOC single? Please stop. I don't care. Okay, great. Shut the fuck up. Why do you even know that? What the fuck? Anyway, it's top of the hour, every hour. It's time for a 6-second ad break. So I'm going to run the ad right now. Also, she's not. And you guys are being fucking weirdos. Please stop. Fucking stalker Andes. If you no longer want to see the ads and you want an ad-free broadcasting experience, all you need to do is subscribe. You can do it for $5 or for free. By connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, you get 1 free Prime subscription a month. Here's the ad now.
Knows exactly how to do so. Polarization in modern media is not diversity. It is not choice. It is simply a blatant abuse of human nature. We all like to hear things that we agree with. The name for this phenomenon is confirmation bias. If I think socialism is a conspiracy to destroy America, I'll turn on the news channel that agrees with me and reinforces my belief, which frankly is all of them, but Fox tends to use that line most effectively. The American media has mastered the art of pandering to its audience, and will continue to do so indefinitely as long as it helps to turn a profit. It doesn't matter if what they are saying is even remotely close to the truth. To make matters worse, the American obsession with free speech has created a media ecosystem where corporate mouthpieces can say whatever they want, asserting their unalienable right to spew meticulously crafted propaganda into millions of households. Despite the fact that the First Amendment does not apply to news networks, our obsessive fixation on being able to say whatever we want, regardless of truthfulness, has given news anchors an excuse to lie outright. These days, free speech means nothing more than I can say whatever I want and promote it as the truth to whoever is willing to listen to me. This perversion of what free speech really means has removed any and all accountability from the media to base their claims in factual truth. Anyone can now go ahead and say whatever they want